Homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Wisdom Warrior Manjushri, homage to all lineage masters, the Dharma, profound and subtle, seldom met in countless ages, now heard and practiced. May we realize the Tathagata's truth for all beings' liberation, generate supreme bodhicitta. We will continue studying the magnetizing activity prayer, or what is called the prayer for spontaneous encompassing. This prayer, as we discussed in the past couple of days, should be very familiar to everyone. For those of us who have just started studying in our Buddhist Institute's lineage, you could say we know everything about it. So this time, we still need to gain an understanding. Of course, in the future, it's also very important to learn about it in more ways. This time, I will give everyone a simple introduction because I haven't had time to look at many reference materials. And at the same time, I haven't had the chance to compare with the original translations either. However, different methods of translation should generally all be considered acceptable in most cases. I'm not sure if this is my own version or one by another teacher. I'm not particularly clear about that, honestly. But this time we are all studying together. The most important thing when we study together is that we now need to fully understand and carefully consider the content of this particular prayer. If we know the content of the prayer, then when we recite it in the future, there will be at the very least a bit of genuine understanding in our hearts. Unlike before, when things were different, when we recite the Vajrasattva 100-syllable mantra, we know little about it just as a purification practice. Commentaries on 100-syllable mantra, I originally wanted to talk about it, but later didn't have the chance. Sometimes, especially with the verses that we frequently and repeatedly recite in our daily prayers and reflections, it's really quite necessary, as you can see, to know about their merits. Of course, I won't go on and on about it. For one thing, our institute has held a full day of Dharma assembly. It's really not easy for everyone to still be listening attentively now. Honestly, you all are truly doing very well. And there are also a great many Buddhists online from all around the world. During New Year, everyone may be distracted, creating negative karma. Especially people in the cities are very scattered. But every day I check to see how many people are still participating, and it's actually quite good. So I always feel that as we hold the Dharma assembly, everyone is also in fact learning together. Studying the Dharma is something we should all recognize as a genuinely rare and precious opportunity. You could indeed put it that way. Of course, to study in the presence of genuine spiritual teachers is indeed extremely rare. In my own life, I have experienced all sorts of things, but the most precious, truly beautiful and unforgettable memories are the times I listened to the Dharma in the presence of my precious Guru Jigme Phuntsho. Those experiences felt truly wonderful to me. If I had the chance to listen again now, I might approach it in a different way. Because at that time, many of the teachings were very profound, but I didn't remember them. Now, looking back, including what I've been thinking about recently, each morning when we recite the magnetizing activity prayer, in fact, Venerable Jigme Phuntsho gave many key instructions on this topic in the past, but at the time, I neither took notes nor kept them in my heart. Oh, perhaps opportunities like this come every day. Now, I want to give you some helpful guidance and advice. It seems that many of you just only seem to understand it a bit vaguely. There are impressions, but they are vague and blurry. So sometimes I think, starting now, if I could go through all my past study and contemplation experiences again, I would probably be much better prepared in every single aspect of this situation overall. But in this lifetime, that's truly absolutely impossible, as if all of life has flowed away in vain. But within our own mental continuum, we should have left behind good roots of virtue. Nagarjuna Bodhisattva specifically mentioned in one of his teachings that our physical body will not follow us into future lives, but the merit from hearing and receiving the Dharma will always follow us into our future lives. Although everything from before has now vanished like smoke. The roots of virtue and merit in our mental continuum will absolutely continue with us life after life. So in this regard, we also cannot, just because all phenomena are empty or illusory, use this as a reason to negate everything. So I think this time as well, while everyone is attending the Dharma assembly and also celebrating the new year in the city, everyone is listening very attentively. Although I may not be able to express much, I have great confidence in this Dharma practice. I myself have probably been reciting it for over 20 years every single day. Whether at the institute or outside, I might have recited it a bit more than most. I have no special merit, but studying together with everyone should be considered truly meaningful and genuinely important in one's life. Earlier, as we discussed in our previous conversation, we talked about the overall positive qualities and merits of the nine principal deities, the infinite palace they rely on, their ancient wisdom and their lineage, as well as the radiant and illuminating wisdom light that gently dispels and clears away all wrong thoughts and the deep pervasive darkness of ignorance, and so on, discussed aspects. So today we will continue by talking about which deities make up the nine principal deities, and then what characteristics each deity possesses as supplicants. For example, if we are worldly petitioners, those who make requests or appeals for help or favor, the object of our supplication must possess abilities. If they lack these abilities, it would be like we ourselves are poor people. If the person we are begging from is also poor, they would not be able to actually give us anything at all. Similarly, if the object of our supplication lacks the power to magnetize, can the object of our supplication truly grant us the accomplishment of magnetizing activities? The nine principal deities for today truly do have the remarkable ability to grant us all virtues and siddhis. So today, let's first talk about Dharmakaya Amitabha Buddha Vajradharma, embodiment of loving kindness, the Lotus King, who masterfully embodies both the endless cycle of samsara and the serene liberation of nirvana, and the mighty black Hayagriva, the powerful protector who subdues all obstacles and negative forces with his extraordinary strength. Secret wisdom Vajrayogini, the king of supreme bliss and wonderful desire, the great treasury of bliss, the mother of light who holds all sentient beings' consciousness. The mother of clear light, radiant and ever-present, is the gentle and compassionate force who lovingly gathers together the minds and consciousness of all beings, drawing them from every corner of existence. With a luminous presence that shines through all realms, she unites the thoughts, awareness, and inner essence. First, let's take a moment to talk about the nine principal deities. Yesterday, I gave everyone a brief introduction to the nine principal deities. Actually, the Dharma assembly currently held at the Buddhist Institute is called the Vidyadhara Dharma Assembly. Why is it called the Vidyadhara Dharma Assembly? I explained yesterday. Vidyadhara Dharma Assembly began in 1995. At that time, our nunnery hall was consecrated and many holy beings from all over the world came to attend. It began then. Before that, it was called the Nine Principal Deities Dharma Assembly. I thought the Nine Principal Deities Dharma Assembly first happened when I arrived. But yesterday, when a few Khenpos from our monastery and I were discussing together, they said that before this, around 1984, Precious Guru bestowed empowerment of 4 heart drops to everyone. At that time, the Nine Principal Deities Dharma Assembly had already been held. Before I arrived, the Nine Principal Deities Dharma Assembly had already started at the Institute. The ritual text for the Nine Principal Deities was composed by the previous incarnation of the Dharma King, the Tertön Lerab Lingpa. The images of the nine principal deities are actually the same as the ones I showed you here. That is, the ones we looked at today. I heard the office has some copies. Did everyone get a copy, perhaps as a token of connection? Yes? Now, there are none left at all, but there were definitely some here just a couple of days ago, right? These should only be given to those who have sincere faith in Vajrayana Buddhism. Otherwise, for those with a general Sutrayana disposition, some of these images of deities might not be easily accepted. If you develop faith in this area in the future, we can establish a connection then. It really depends on your own personal faith, truly. As for this Thangka, or these images, in fact, They were painted according to the recitation ritual from the magnetizing activity prayer. If we follow the 9 deities rituals, many Buddha statues, there should be dual cultivation statues. No Yabyum deity in union images. So according to the images here, first, it is like this. The Dharmakaya, Amitabha Buddha, that's one. Vajra Dharma, that's the second. The embodiment of great compassion, sovereign of the world, this is read Avalokiteshvara, the third. The Lotus King who masters samsara and nirvanatis is the fourth, Guru Padmasambhava. The mighty Heruka who subdues all this is Hayagriva, the horse-headed wisdom king, which should be the fifth. Secret wisdom, this is the wisdom yogini, the sixth. Vajravarahi, who is known as the seventh figure in this particular sequence, holds her place as the king of supreme bliss, the divine treasury of great bliss. This is truly Mahesvara, the Supreme One. There are two ways to interpret this. But according to the explanation I'm giving this time, as you may know, this refers specifically to Mahesvara, who is being mentioned here as the eighth in the sequence. Next, the one who gathers the minds and consciousness of all beings. This is the Wisdom Mother, the ninth. Among these, it should be that overall, in summary, the 9 principal deities can be thoroughly explained and understood by these lines as described above. At first, as we mentioned earlier on, when His Holiness Jigme Phunsak requested this image to be painted, it was in the center. I think I also mentioned in the last class that the first is the Dharmakaya Amitabha. The second, just below the center, is Vajradharma. The third is Guru Padmasambhava. In this way, at the center are the 3 bodies, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, with Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva above. Let's first give a brief introduction to these 4 to you. First, the Dharmakaya Amitabha Buddha, by magnetizing activity, belongs to the Lotus family. As for the Lotus family, we know that Amitais of the Western Pure Land and Amitabha Buddha are all part of the Lotus family. In the 5 Dhyani Buddhas of Chinese Buddhism, he's also said to belong to the Lotus family. Why is he part of the Lotus family, and how many holy beings are there in the Lotus family? The Vajrayana texts, Liberation Through Hearing and Guhyagarbha Tantra, explain this in detail. If you look for this in Chinese Buddhism, you'll only find some symbolic references in Tang esoteric Buddhism. Very detailed information that's probably not available. The Lotus family has Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakayati, 3 kayas. Here, when we talk about the Dharmakaya, generally speaking, it transcends all words and thoughts, transcends all forms and appearances, and transcends all attachments. It is an inconceivable state where the intent of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is indivisible. The Dharma realm, wisdom and emptiness are inseparable. This inconceivable reality is called the Dharmakaya. This Dharmakaya, Amitabha Buddha of infinite light, when we express this in words, we refer to the Dharmakaya as infinite light. When it comes to form, it can only be represented by a Buddha statue. As for these Buddha statues, in our paintings, it seems like perhaps at the time, maybe the artist didn't paint it well. So it appears, the outer appearance is dressed like a Nirmanakaya Buddha. But in reality, it is like a red Samantabhadra Tathagata. There are absolutely no adornments or decorative ornaments present on his body. What then does this actually signify or represent? In the ordinary everyday world, if someone happens to be without any clothing on, people tend to feel especially embarrassed and deeply ashamed by the situation. But in the true nature of all phenomena, truly none of this is actually necessary at all. The nature of our mind is utterly and completely bare. You could say there are no attachments or adornments upon it. So we are citing the text called Liberation Through Devotion. The beginning of Liberation Through Devotion is as follows. It says, in the beginning, originally, the Tathagata's immutable body of light, which refers to Amitabha, the Buddha of infinite light, unadorned in red and yellow, seated in the meditation posture. Has no adornments, and his color is red and yellow. Then in the ritual, it describes sitting cross-legged and the meditative mudra at the start. This means that the Dharmakaya of infinite light is Samantabhadra Tathagata is blue, while the Dharmakaya of infinite light is red and yellow. But there are absolutely no adornments on the body, no Nirmanakaya robes and no Sambhogakaya robes, either of them. Nor are there any other bodhisattva ornaments, such as necklaces or other decorations. Today, I also want to mention here that among the idams of the wrathful magnetizing deities this time, there are several deities below who also appear naked, adorned only with bone ornaments. In the future, we should understand that whenever we see images of naked bodhisattvas, this is why Vajrayana requires high realization. If you yourself are attached to notions of, or if you're attached to shame or shamelessness, when the bodhisattva appears, it is like the Buddha of the exoteric school. There always has to be some kind of truly particularly majestic appearance. But when all your attachments to appearances are completely gone, then your own Vajrayana says, when you recognize the true nature of your own mind, this is called Rigpa, naked awareness. It does not have these kinds. But for you personally, there is also no attachment to any of this. For them, it is neither beneficial nor harmful. But whenever we feel that nudity is not quite appropriate, capacity for Vajrayana is not mature. That's why some aspects of Vajrayana should not be casually shared online or made public, such as certain yab-yum images or depictions of nudity. This is also the reason why some practices cannot be made public. In fact, nudity in Vajrayana is a symbol of the nakedness of awareness. Yab-yum images in Vajrayana show the union of subject and object. The other is there is a mutual attachment between the mind and the external world. We say this is male, this is female, this is yang, this is yin. There are many distinctions like white and red, but at a certain level everything merges. There's no longer any clinging to subject and object. This is what the Abhyam image symbolizes. So generally speaking, for example, whether we are talking about Hayagriva or Vajrayogini, on the surface, for example, the image of Vajrayogini and the pig's head we'll discuss later. When we explain these, it means there is no pure or impure, there is neither purity nor defilement. Because, as everyone knows, pigs in the mundane world, they have no attachments. They will eat even things that are considered bad. This is a kind of symbol in Vajrayana. It is not considered ugly at all. It's not that you have to become like Jubaji. That would indeed be unsightly. But right now we are attached to the idea that a pig's head is unclean and ugly. If it were the form of a celestial maiden, how beautiful and attractive that would be. This is how we currently think. So for this reason, this point becomes clear when studying the view section of the Guhyagarbha Tantra. Everyone knows in the true nature of the mind, truly none of these distinctions actually exist. Some Buddhas and Bodhisattvas use their bodies to directly show the nature of your mind. The true nature of your mind is originally a state of openness and clarity, or the union of appearance and emptiness. When we speak of the union of appearance and emptiness, or emptiness and bliss, once we're attached, if a man and woman embrace, it's seen as worldly. We are always bound by this kind of limitation. But what it actually signifies is that the external world and our own mind, clarity and emptiness, are the true nature of our mind. Clarity and emptiness can be described as a union, but in reality there is nothing like the so-called union that we see with our eyes, or the idea in our minds of two things coming together, merging, touching each other, embracing, nothing like that. It is truly entirely a transcendent phenomenon. This is what Vajrayana is about, because most people have not yet realized the Madhyamaka emptiness of the Sutrayana. If one has not yet recognized the luminous aspect of Buddha nature in the exoteric tradition, then it is extremely difficult for emptiness and luminosity to truly merge. Therefore, to break through many attachments, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas manifest before us in this way. This is a matter of personal perspective. Some people, relying on such Buddha images or Yedam images, are able to forcefully merge Sahaja wisdom into their own bodies. All worldly things, whether it is greed or naturally transform into the non-dual wisdom of emptiness and bliss. Therefore, there is a lot of significance in this regard. I hope that many of us, many people study Vajrayana Buddhism now. It's become a Vajrayana fever or Tibetan Buddhism craze. They say that many foreigners really like to go to Tibet, so it's often called Tibet drifting. That's what people say, they often go there. Many claiming to understand Vajrayana are driven by curiosity. When they see a statue of a deity that's nude, they just have to take a picture of it. They think the human body is beautiful. But that's not the case. Because of this, there are some individuals, we get it, they are those suited to exoteric Buddhism. They don't understand exoteric Buddhism. When it comes to some of the profound teachings or images in Vajrayana, they make all sorts of criticisms from the outside. Existed in ancient times and will exist in future. But some people who studied Vajrayana in practice with some insight, whether it's the wisdom dakini or many of her manifestations, they are not impure in the worldly sense. And among impure things, they are nothing like the most pitiable forms of desire. The most pitiful attachments that bind people, those kinds of thoughts, globally lowest states. These things are absolutely not advocated in Vajrayana Buddhism. This goes without saying. Every ritual and its meaning, the wisdom and great bliss, are they really the same as sensual pleasures in the world? Or do they have anything in common with the worldly desires people talk about? Difference is obvious at a glance. As I was saying, among the 9 deities, the one in the center should refer to the Dharmakaya Amitabha, infinite light. Practicing this Dharma is an auspicious cause. The Guru mentioned this before. Everyone here, when the time comes to leave this world, should aspire to be reborn in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. This is direct connection with rebirth, Pure Land, Lotus Family, Amitabha Buddha. It is a particularly direct karmic link. In the Infinite Life Sutra, Amitabha has infinite and boundless light. And there are many, about 12 different epithets, I believe. Among these different epithets, one of them is also Buddha of infinite light. The first deity we pray to is Buddha of infinite light. That's the first. The second is what is called the Vajra Dharma. There are several different ways in which this Vajra Dharma can be interpreted, as people may approach its meaning from a variety of perspectives and understand it in different contexts. In Chinese Buddhism, in some tongue esoteric texts, in the Lotus family lives Bodhisattva Vajradharma. Vajradharma Bodhisattva has a red body. In front of Amitabha Buddha as one of his retinue, there is also such a figure. In some Vajrayana Terma practice texts of Tibetan Buddhism, he is also generally considered to be a distinct and separate holy being, different from Amitabha Buddha. There are many such scriptural sources as well. However, this Vajradharma refers to Vajradhara Tathagata. Vajradhara is also depicted as blue. In the Dzogchen lineage of esoteric teachings, he is blue in color. Both hands are crossed in front of the chest, holding a Vajra bell and a Vajra scepter. But this one is simply red. Many Dharma friends may perhaps have never seen a red Vajradhara before. His Holiness the Dharma King said that in one of Mipham Rinpoche's practices, there is such a red Vajradhara. His Holiness put it in the ritual text. The deities' body colors depicted here are specifically based on those described in the teachings of Mipham Rinpoche. I also asked senior practitioners who had received teachings from His Holiness. Many Dharma friends, just like me, are actually a little bit unsure about this. A lot of principles are hard to recall, and it's the same here. At that time, His Holiness mentioned that in one of Mipham Rinpoche's ritual texts, a red Vajradhara figure appeared before them. So this should be considered the Sambhogakaya enjoyment body. Better seen as the Sambhogakaya, it can be interpreted differently. The 3 kayas, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, are essential in practices, including those by His Holiness. Depict Dharmakaya, Amitabha Center, Sambhogakaya, Vajradhara, Nirmanakaya, Padmakara, Guru Rinpoche. This arrangement is very appropriate. So when we often refer to Vajradhara, we say Vajradhara Tathagata, and he is depicted in Sambhogakaya attire. Some tantras also state that Vajradhara is in fact an emanation of Amitabha Buddha. In some tantras it is said a red light radiates atop Amitabha Buddha's head and transforms into red Avalokiteshvara. A red light radiates from his throat and transforms into Guru Padmasambhava. A red light radiates from his heart and transforms into Hayagriva. A light radiates from the tip of his nose and transforms into Vajrapani. The Vajrapani here does not specifically say or state that it is the Sambhogakaya Vajra Dharma. But since context refers to Dharmakaya, we speak of Dharmakaya Samantabhadra Tathagata. Samantabhadra and Amitabha as Dharmakaya are inseparable. Many sadhanas mention Dharmakaya Amitabha. This statement exists too. Dharmakaya, Amitabha, and Sambhogakaya Vajradhara may be referenced, whether emanation of Amitabha's mind or Amitabha's body, speech, and mind refers to Sambhogakaya Vajradhara. Nowadays, some people claim to be Vajradhara themselves, and in many cases they refer to themselves as Dorje Chang. For the Sambhogakaya seen by ordinary impure beings is not particularly easy. So sometimes I really feel that there are all sorts of different claims out there. Everyone keeps a clear mind. Otherwise, I'm not deliberately slandering anyone. But Vajradharma is Dorje Chang and Vajradhara is Dorje Chang. Sometimes names are the same. People do this too. Some people who are particularly unattractive are also called Dakini. There are all kinds of people. If you're just talking about having the same name, that's fine. But if you think the name means Vajradhara, Vajradhara is not just the same in name, but you actually claim to be Vajradhara yourself. This is extremely difficult. Because in many tantras, and in some cases, although there is Samantabhadra in Vajrayana Buddhism, I haven't heard of a living Buddha who is Samantabhadra. Dharmakaya in the human world is not convenient. It might be difficult to follow procedures, but there are still many incarnations. Reincarnations of Shakyamuni Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, and Manjushri. Vajradhara has come to the human world, so thus the Sambhogakaya is present. A few years from now, indeed, as times continue to change, emanations will keep appearing, and even the Sambhogakaya will manifest. Maybe in a few decades, this century, Dharmakaya appear illusion. Let's continue to look forward to this with anticipation. No matter what, we should pray to the Vajradharma. The Vajradharma is the Sambhogakaya Vajradharma, the red Vajradharma. As I mentioned earlier, it's only different in color, really, from the blue Vajradhara. The depiction by His Holiness here is indeed the same. Then the third one, most principally, of Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and this Dharma Avalokiteshvara practice. The entire prayer to the nine deities belongs to the Avalokiteshvara tradition. During the Dharma assembly, I told them via Weibo, if you can't recite nine deities mantra, reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, she is good, because this is an Avalokiteshvara practice. And if you want to form a positive connection, that's fine. This morning, as I was sitting over there was a lay practitioner sitting right next to me who kept loudly chanting the mantra Om Mani Padme Hum She again and again, his voice echoing through the room and making it hard for me to focus. That's absolutely perfectly fine too. If you really find it too difficult to memorize the nine deities mantras, you can do it this way as well. Because this practice is an Avalokiteshvara practice between Nirmanakaya and Sambhogakaya, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, compassion and kindness sovereign in this world. Padmasambhava is above per the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya order. But because this is simply in the human realm, the Dharmakaya and Sambhogakaya above are the realms of Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. It may be difficult to be born, but we depend on Guanyin Dharma. In Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva comes, and Nirmanakaya, the emanation of Padmasambhava. Perhaps this is the reason. So the third one is introduced here. The compassionate Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva who has achieved all freedom in the world, Bodhisattva cares for sentient beings. Avalokiteshvara has forms like the four-armed and one-faced two-armed, with the thousand-armed, thousand-eyed Avalokiteshvara and many other forms. But this Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva is in particular distinctly different from the commonly known Avalokiteshvara. In Chinese Buddhism, there are also a few references to the red Avalokiteshvara. But in Tibetan Buddhism, Among the Terma treasures revealed by different Tertons, there are particularly many red Avalokiteshvara. The Institute, every 30th, says prayers for deceased. There is one called Shanghai Avalokiteshvara, a red, one-faced, four-armed Avalokiteshvara. Reciting this name and mantra is extremely powerful for blessing and liberating the deceased. So originally, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok, and later for all the deceased who had a karmic connection with our institute each month, on the 30th of each month, monks recited the red Avalokiteshvara sadhana. So the red Avalokiteshvara appears especially frequently. Here, as mentioned by Mifim Rinpoche in other sadhanas, this is similar to how Tara is green, but here it is red, with the left hand holding a lotus and the right hand in the gesture of supreme generosity. So this is the red Avalokiteshvara. In other words, the red Avalokiteshvara, revered for embodying the qualities of infinite compassion and loving kindness, completely and wholeheartedly embraces all sentient beings, surrounding them with great warmth, care, and deep compassion. At the same time, through great compassion, all the various afflictions and sufferings of sentient beings are naturally eliminated. Some tantras also say that Amitabha Buddha emits red light from his body, which transforms into the red Avalokiteshvara residing beside Amitabha Buddha. Therefore, Avalokiteshvara is in fact a manifestation of Amitabha Buddha. This being is his emanation. When we talk about Pure Land practices, reportedly, Amitabha Buddha emits light, transforming into Mahastama Prapta and Avalokiteshvara. There are explanations. When we practice magnetizing, this Avalokiteshvara practice brings tremendous blessings. In fact, when practicing the magnetizing activity, we get physical, mental freedom in this life. Everything becomes effortless. And as we wish receiving such blessings, after we leave this world, we can be reborn with Amitabha Buddha and Avalokiteshvara. So the entire practice is in fact very much closely integrated with the Pure Land teaching. It can be said to be a dual practice of both the Pure Land and Vajrayana traditions. We recite daily. Of course, what I'm sharing here is just a drop in the ocean, a very brief introduction. In fact, its truly profound meaning may not be possible to fully explain, even over a very long period of time. Indeed, there are some especially extraordinary and profound key points within it. As for the 9 deities, those who recite the sadhana are probably all familiar with them. In our current daily practice of the 9 deity sadhana, there is the red Avalokiteshvara. Red Guanyin is the main deity. In that, in Lerab Lingpa's terma, red Avalokiteshvara is the main deity. He is in union with the secret wisdom Dakini, the consort, and bears the emblems of Avalokiteshvara. In his hands, he holds a hook and, I believe, a lotus lasso. The principal deity of the entire 9 deities sadhana is indeed actually the red Avalokiteshvara, deity Guru Padmasambhava. There's a difference between the two. One is a terma by Mifim Rinpoche, a supplication prayer. So there's still a difference between them. I remember that His Holiness the Wish-Fulfilling Jewel also mentioned this before. Strictly speaking, in Lerab Lingpa's 9 deities, Guru Padmasambhava should appear, but in that practice, Guru Padmasambhava does not appear. I don't know what the reason or the karmic connection is. It seems His Holiness once spoke about this. To be honest, in the practice we recite every morning now, Guru Padmasambhava is also not included. 9 deities mantras, he is not there. But in this ritual, the 9 deities are also not so easy to count. It seems that in the supplication prayer, the 9 deities can all be quite clearly counted. In the ritual, 4 Vidyadhara Dakinis are listed, but maybe the Vidyadhara Dakini is actually just one. In this way, the 3 bodies, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya, Amitabha Buddha, perhaps are represented as the principal deities, with the lord of the family, Amitabha, above Avalokiteshvara. Amitabha Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, unified. Vajravarahi is included, as well as Vidyadhara Dakini and the secret wisdom Yogini. There is Maheshvara and red Avalokiteshvara So the 9 deities can be counted. Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya as one Amitabha Buddha. A single Amitabha Buddha can manifest in various different forms before various sentient beings. If it is before pure bodhisattvas, he can manifest as a Sambhogakaya Buddha. If it is before impure sentient beings, then he can also appear as the Nirmanakaya, such as Guru Padmasambhava. It should be like this. Above, it seems that in the ritual there is a principal deity, infinite light. This is how I understand it. This is the third one we talked about, Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva. So after we've already talked about the first 3 steps, we're now moving on to the next part, which is the 4th one in the sequence. Is that correct? We're focusing on the 4th step now, right? All the dharmas of samsara and nirvana, worldly and transcendental, are completely in his hands. You could say he has mastery over them. He controls physical sentient worlds. Dharmas, samsara, nirvana, worldly, transcendental. Such a great being is Guru Padmasambhava, the Lotus King. In this Sankha of the deity, the Lotus King is depicted in the center with a white body color. Why is his body color white? Actually, in Mifam Rinpoche's Guru Yoga, from the Path of Liberation Unveiled, Padmasambhava appears white and red. In fact, there should actually be less red. He is predominantly white with some red. When you have time, you can look at the Path of Liberation Unveiled. Our precious Guru also used to explain it this way. Painted white was brighter. Padmasambhava is white tinged with red. Most haven't seen Padmasambhava thus, similar to Vajrasattva image. But what makes it different from Vajrasattva is that he has a Khatvanga staff. Guru told artists to paint. He said there was no need to depict the union with the consort. The Dakini could simply be represented by the Khatvanga staff. Padmasambhava should be depicted here holding a vajra and a skull cup in his hands. In the center is the emanation, the Lotus King. Everyone knows the name Lotus King. King Indrabhuti went to ocean for wish-fulfilling jewel. On the way, he encountered a lotus in the middle of a lake. Inside the lotus was a beautiful and dignified young boy. The king, overjoyed, invited him. He empowered the king, bestowed blessings, and transmitted esoteric teachings. The king was overjoyed and with a joyful heart addressed him as the Lotus King. Born in a lotus, moreover, the king himself also obtained supreme esoteric teachings. Afterwards, the king offered everything inside and out to Padmasambhava. At first, although the name Padmasambhava had various different interpretations, but as we all know, Padmasambhava is generally regarded as an emanation of Amitabha Buddha. In the aspiration prayer to the Pure Land of Great Bliss, he's also described as a radiant emanation from Amitabha Buddha's heart. In this way, he belongs to the Lotus family. And when we pray to Padmasambhava, facing evil, heresy, adversity, beyond control, through his truly inconceivable blessings, indeed, we can gain freedom and things can go smoothly. He is called the emanation Padmasambhava. Padmasambhava. Many qualities. I think previously when we taught the 7-line prayer, I explained these in detail to everyone. So those who attended those sessions, everyone knows how Padmasambhava manifests before sentient beings, be it in India, China, or Tibet. All of his inconceivable manifestations, including even now, to be honest, if those present here had not received the direct blessings of Padmasambhava. I think it would simply be impossible to have gained the benefits of Tibetan Buddhism today. Tibet used to be, indeed, extremely remote in the past. Without the blessings of Padmasambhava, it would have been impossible. Why is it that even today, Tibetan Buddhism, in the context of the entire world and its many cultures, should be said to be especially flourishing? This is also closely related to the aspirations and sincere wishes of Padmasambhava. Many people can understand this by considering the meaning. Why are we drawn to Tibetan Buddhism? There are many religions, but why do we choose this one? To be honest, some reasons are about overcoming afflictive emotions, especially in terms of how Vajrayana deals with afflictions. It is much faster than any other method. This is something people of other or no religions may not accept. If they can accept it, this is a genuine realization we have gained in our own practice. It's also perfectly reasonable for us to say this within the context of our own tradition. For example, it's like when we've truly enjoyed an exceptionally good meal, we say, I ate today. If others don't like it, we can't change that. It's just that I have genuinely, truly benefited from it. Padmaraja is also one of the 9 Yidam deities. This makes it the 4th. Now, the 5th one discussed is the mighty Hayagriva who subdues all existence. He can subdue the entire existing world, which is the material world and the sentient world. Everything in the entire world, absolutely everything, can be subdued and overcome. As mentioned earlier about Hayagriva, some say he is the wrathful manifestation of Amitabha Buddha. When Amitabha Buddha appears wrathful before sentient beings, he manifests as Hayagriva. Although some people say, for example, that Hayagriva is also a very special practice within Hinduism and statements. The manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are truly inconceivable. It should be said that the practice of Hayagriva, especially certain aspects of his practice, in Han Buddhism commentaries on the Mahavairocana Sutra and related texts, there is also information about Hayagriva, but it is not very extensive. Within Terma teachings of Tibetan Buddhism, there are indeed many Terma teachings in which the major practices of Hayagriva are quite numerous. For example, during the historical period of Guru Padmasambhava, there were certain saints who primarily practiced Hayagriva and attained realization through this practice. This phenomenon is especially common in the Dujom history of Buddhism when introducing some great masters. Many of these great masters ultimately attained realization through practicing Hayagriva. Later, a horse's head would appear above their own, accompanied by neighing and various other manifestations. For example, Fangtong Gyalpo is notably considered a combined emanation of Amitabha and Hayagriva. Moreover, the sound produced by Hayagriva's voice can be emitted upward with great clarity and resonance. Sound emitted downward, sound emitted to the left and right. For example, the sound emitted upward subdues all beings in the heavenly realms above. The sound emitted downward subdues all beings in the Naga realms below. The sound to the right subjugates all male demonic forces and heretical beings. The sound to the left subjugates all female heretical beings. Therefore, especially in the degenerate age, those who practice Hayagriva, Mipham Rinpoche composed simple sadhanas, and we should not misunderstand these practices. There really are indeed some straightforward practices that one can do. Even just reciting the mantra alone, in and of itself, simply brings immense merit. When I was young, I used to herd yaks every day. Every day, while herding yaks, I would recite the heart mantra of Hayagriva. Om Benza Trota Hayagriva Hala Hala. Every day, I would slowly walk barefoot in the quiet mountains, holding a small black prayer wheel. So I suppose I can also be called a yogi of Hayagriva, because in the past, I used to recite the mantra of Hayagriva. When I was very young, and our family back then only had just a few horses. Many villagers believe that if you recite Hayagriva's heart mantra often, please be completely assured that those horses would not be endangered or seriously injured or harmed by wild beasts outside, not in any way whatsoever, rest assured. So on the one hand, my father would also say every day, these horses are entrusted to you, so you should recite Hayagriva's heart mantra even more often. And I thought, this is quite a heavy responsibility, so I really should recite it. This motivation wasn't very pure, but I still had this kind of habitual tendency. Next, it talks about which number it is secret wisdom, and also Vajra Yogini. First, secret wisdom refers to the secret Dakini. She is also called the wisdom Dakini or the wisdom Yogini. This wisdom Yogini is quite similar to the usual Yogini, but this remarkable Yogini, the wish-fulfilling guru said it was from the Heaven Dharma tradition. Mipham Rinpoche, in a ritual from the Heaven Dharma tradition, there is a mystical Yogini who possesses a single face and 4 graceful, elegant arms. It is said that in her 4 hands, the first 2 hold a curved knife and a nectar vase, and then I think a Khatvanga staff and a sword, probably. Actually, the secret Yogini, she is considered Avalokiteshvara's consort in the practice of union, you could put it that way. In Tibetan and Buddhism, there are many tantras related to secret yogic practices. Many tantras, particularly in the Sakya tradition, there used to be such a saying, as it was often remarked upon. The teachings of the secret wisdom yogini were transmitted exclusively and not to be passed on to later, they said it was 7 people or 21 people. This teaching has always been carefully and deliberately kept especially secret, known only to a select few. Anyone who practices this secret yogini method, their own spiritual progress will in fact, as a result, be achieved very rapidly indeed. That's why in the Nine Tik and in the words of my perfect teacher on Dzogchen, when practicing Guru Yoga, one should visualize oneself as Vajrayogini. The reason is this. Many of the truly great masters and teachers of the past throughout history have carefully and thoroughly explained and described this important practice. Whether you practice Chakra Samvara or Kala Chakra, any of these practices are truly, especially supreme. In the very beginning, both the Sakyapas and Nyingmapas practiced them with great secrecy and utmost care. Even up to now, the teachings on secret wisdom are rarely transmitted openly. In the past, there were also many people who attained realization by practicing this method exclusively. There were especially many such people, really quite a lot. Later on, even the Gelugpa and other schools also engaged in this practice. Moreover, among the group known as the 80 great accomplished masters of the past, who played a significant role in shaping the majority, also attained realization through this very practice. Therefore, when we supplicate to this wisdom deity with deep respect, all the desire and discursive thoughts within our own inner mind stream can quickly transform into the wisdom of discriminating awareness, and thus realization is attained. This is the wisdom dakini, and now we are talking about Vajrayogini. In front is a face, 2 arms, and 3 eyes. This Vajrayogini also has 1 face, 2 arms, and 3 eyes. In fact, this remarkable Vajrayogini is also considered to be extremely profound and significant. Especially within the Kagyu tradition, the Vajrayogini practice is extremely secret and exceptionally sublime. There are many different methods of practicing her, including, for example, in the region of Tibetan, there are red Vajrayogini, black Vajrayogini, and many other colors of Vajrayogini as well. For example, Vajrayogini can appear in a variety of different forms and colors, not limited to just red or black. Longshen Rabjam of the Nyingma school, for example, often according to his biography. I remember many times Vajrayogini appeared to him. Once Venerable Longchen Pa said, "I didn't even pray to you, so why did you appear?" This is also often mentioned in the biographies of Jigme Gyalwe Nyugu. This is Vajrayogini, a highly revered figure in Buddhist tradition known for her profound spiritual significance and transformative power. I believe I have just spoken about how important she is within the context of Buddhist practice, highlighting her role as a symbol of wisdom. This is the 7th one, let me confirm, right? 8th, King of Supreme Bliss, sublime desire. That is to say, in other words, the great treasury of joy is essentially the great freedom God. This seems to be according to the explanation method of Tulku Tenzin Gyatso. Chakra Samvara is the supreme bliss, and the king of sublime desire is also a worldly king of desire. There's also the great joy treasury, also known as the great freedom God. The 3 of them are separate. There is this explanation with 11 deities. But when I explain it here, it is also possible to interpret this entire row as Maheshvara. Why is that? Of course, it is also acceptable to explain them separately like that. Tulku Tenzin Gyatso's view is one interpretation of this. Or it is also possible to interpret all of them together. But it might be better to interpret them together since we are discussing the practice of the 9 deities. The focus is on the 9 deities. So, according to Mipham Rinpoche's ultimate intent, both interpretations are acceptable. Here, the King of Supreme Blissful Desire refers to Maheshvara. He is the Treasury of Great Bliss and has other names. Why is he called Treasury of Great Bliss? Because he benefits countless sentient beings through the wisdom of non-dual emptiness and bliss. Some people say that Maheshvara might, in the worldly context, supreme praise to supreme deities. In those texts, he is described as a deity especially characterized by great desire. When you go to India, if you encounter the Maheshvara tradition, including his symbols and other aspects, it all seems rather unacceptable. So why is he regarded here as the object of our prayers? In fact, there is no contradiction. Many tantras and terma liturgies state that Amitabha actually manifests as two kinds of noble gods. In front of Buddhists, he becomes the supreme noble deity Maheshvara. The practice of red Maheshvara is quite common in some Nyingma magnetizing activity practices. In front of the outsiders, there is the revered great freedom god whom they devotedly worship and honor. In this context, the object is an emanation of Avalokiteshvara. Moreover, in some other scriptures, it is said the Buddha Tathagata of unexcelled emergence manifests as Maheshvara. So here we can see him as a Buddha or Bodhisattva manifestation, a noble deity who liberates sentient beings and accomplishes magnetizing activity. In this way, the so-called Maheshvara here indeed, in fact, also has one face and two arms. What does he hold in his hands? One is a trident, and the other is a Damaru, Topa, and Kachanga, right? This is Maheshvara. In the past, in the Nyingma tradition, there was a Tibetan master called Guru Choyang. In his biography, there are also many stories about him meeting Maheshvara and attaining accomplishments. So whenever we talk about these so-called heavenly deities and say, this is a worldly practice we should reject, but that's not always the case. In this world, it is often very difficult to discern the manifestations of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Next, it talks about gathering sentient beings. Gathering the minds of sentient beings can also mean moving or touching their heart. Because Saraswati is especially dignified, truly graceful, and exceptionally beautiful, she indeed stands out in this way. She can move the hearts of many people. It's not just Saraswati, I'm talking about Vajravarahi as well. This Vajravarahi, in fact, is depicted here with one face and four arms. The front two hands hold an iron hook and a lotus lasso, while the back two hands hold a bow and arrow made of lotus flowers. This Vajravarahi is actually a unique manifestation of the Buddha's wisdom of sublime discernment. It should be said that whoever prays to her will truly have their wishes fulfilled. However, Vajravarahi has many unique qualities. If a monastic wants to keep pure precepts and previously had very strong desires, then after praying to Vajravarahi, that former desire will be transformed into wisdom in their mind stream. The master once mentioned in a praise to Kurukula monastics, especially Buddhist monastics, living and practicing in this current degenerate age, exchange their extremely precious and deeply meaningful vows, which represent a lifelong commitment and trust for nothing more than a brief and momentary physical pleasure that quickly fades away. This is particularly shameful. However, if you sincerely and wholeheartedly pray to Vajravarahi, then all such obstacles can indeed be completely eliminated without exception. Also, when you cannot find the people you care about in this world, praying to Vajravarahi brings tremendous blessings as well. Therefore, some lamas now refer to Vajravarahi as the deity of love. They kindly requested their disciples to chant Om Gere Galaishe Soham more often, whenever possible, and with sincerity and devotion, because it's known today there are many single people. Some women simply can't find someone to marry, and some men likewise just can't seem to find a partner. Even on the internet and really everywhere, people are feeling very anxious and still can't seem to find anyone. So they pray everywhere and seek out many Rinpoches. The Rinpoches are also very compassionate and specifically teach them such practices. The merits and activities of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are truly inconceivable. Indeed, Vajrahi manifests in a variety of different forms in order to benefit all sentient beings. Many families today have poor relationships. In situations like these, you have the real opportunity to fully and completely fulfill your wishes, making sure that what you truly hope for can be achieved just as you desire. I seem to remember a story. In the past, there was a king who had many queens. One of the queens was especially beautiful, but as time passed, she gradually grew old. After she aged, the king lost favor with her and no longer liked her as much as before. She became extremely heartbroken and deeply distressed, unable to regain the king's affection. So she sent one of her maids to go out and search for a solution. Is there any way, in any possible manner, to restore the king to his original state of mind as he once was? The maid searched everywhere but couldn't find anything. Later, there was a market that specialized in selling silk threads. There, A beautiful, fair-skinned woman in red caught her eye. Some people say this woman is a prostitute, while others simply called her a beauty. No matter the situation or how you looked at it, there was simply no denying that she possessed a truly remarkable and captivating beauty. The maid went to ask her for help and carefully explained her difficult situation in detail. She carefully told the woman all about the queen's terrible suffering, and after patiently listening to the entire story, the woman generously gave her some food. She instructed that if the queen gave this food to the king to eat, then everything would be fine. It was very simple. She came back and told her, "I met an exceptionally beautiful woman." She said, "If you give this to the king, well, you really should know that things most certainly, absolutely will not turn out that way. Not at all, trust me. He will really, truly like you." But as is sometimes the case, there are actually two versions of what happened next. One version says she didn't dare to give it to him. Another says she never had the chance to give it to the king. Because there is a kind of street food that gives the consequences could worsen. She didn't give it to him. Another version says it was because the king no longer liked her and she was already living in the cold palace. So there was nothing she could do and she didn't give it to him. Later, she threw it into a nearby lake. As a result, the Dragon King in the lake was incredibly delighted. Later, he took on the king's appearance and caused the queen to become pregnant. She got pregnant king. When the king became extremely angry, she finally revealed the whole truth. After she told him, the king, without hesitation, went to look for the beautiful woman from the street. When this woman was graciously invited to the palace, it turned out that she was certainly no ordinary person. She then taught the king and his retinue a method for freeing themselves from all desires. Only then did they realize that she was actually a manifestation of Vajrayogini right before them. Including the king and his retinue, they all practiced this so-called method of transforming desire into the path. Later, the king also attained realization. Once disgraced, and having lost her former honor, the queen eventually experienced a period of deep reflection, which led, some historical accounts say that this king was called King Jusheng. He's said to be the first king in the human world to practice the teachings of Vajrayogini. Because Vajrayogini was simply the very first one to appear in the world, no matter what the case is. There are many different practices and praises of Vajrayogini in the works of the precious guru. When the precious guru went to Qingpu, there were also at that particular time many such practices present among Nyingma masters. In the works and Terma treasure teachings of many great masters of Tibetan Buddhism, there are quite a lot of amendments in this regard. Moreover, these practices possess very profound blessings. It seems that our time is unfortunately up for today. Originally, there were a few more lines to cover, but in summary, earlier I introduced the 9 deities here today. Each of these revered 9 deities can bestow blessings upon us with complete ease and grace. In our own mind streams, we can truly fulfill wishes that we previously could not achieve. For example, as the precious guru used to say, if you have always been unable to obtain wealth for a long time, pray more. Recite this prayer for magnetizing activity to gain wealth. If you have always been unable to find a status in your heart in this world that we live in, there are many things in the world that we cannot obtain, but through this kind of prayer, we can attain them. Supramundane accomplishment. For example, so-called bodhicitta, or the view of emptiness arising in your mind stream, because before our minds become capable and attain freedom, these are impossible. But once our minds gain freedom, then these become very easy to accomplish. So whether you are practicing for worldly or supramundane aims, if you pray to these deities, the blessings and benevolent gifts of these revered deities, it should be said without any doubt, are truly and unquestionably supreme. We will have our wishes fulfilled. This may be discussed further later on. That's all for today.
Bandara